Hello. I started watching Natsume's Book of Friends, and I think it is absolutely beautiful, and we're going to talk about that today. This story begins with a boy named Takashi Natsume running for his life as a yokai chases him through the forest. Natsume has no idea why this yokai is chasing him, asking for the Book of Friends that he has never heard of in his life, and eventually he meets the best talking cat ever. Master, soon to be known as Master Kitty Cat, who explains to Natsume that his grandmother Reiko also saw yokai when she was alive. She challenged every yokai she met to a duel, and when she won, she had them write down their names in the Book of Friends, where she could then have the yokai serve her at her beck and call. After Master Kitty Cat explains this, you learn that he fully intended to steal the Book of Friends from Natsume, but eventually Master Kitty Cat agrees to be Natsume's bodyguard on the condition that he is allowed to have the Book of Friends after Natsume dies. This show sort of takes on a Monster of the Week type format as Natsume and Master Kitty Cat face off or befriend and help different yokai, while Natsume returns the names to many yokai who also tell him about his grandmother. We learn quickly that Natsume lost both of his parents at a very early age. He was deemed weird by his family and the other kids around him because they thought he was lying about seeing things. He was also skittish and ran away a lot. He carried all of this for so long. Before the Fujiwaras, his distant relatives took him in, and this show primarily focuses on Natsume's personal growth as the relationships he builds with the people, the Fujiwaras, and the yokai in this town. So I started the show on a whim. I was kind of looking for something that matched like Freerin. I was kind of looking for something in that realm, and Crunchyroll always recommended this on the things that you may enjoy, and so I just kind of started watching it on a whim. At first, I liked it, but I wasn't like particularly blown away by it. You know what I mean? I liked it, and I was intrigued enough to keep watching, but I don't know when it happened, but the show just ended up worming its way into my heart and affecting me really, really deeply. So at this point, I have finished the first 4 seasons. I was going to finish it and then talk about it, and I just couldn't wait. So we're going to talk about the first 4 seasons. I also know this is a book channel. It might be a books and anime channel. Who knows? We're going to talk about what I want. And I do intend on reading the manga, which I believe is ongoing once I get caught up with the anime. So I might talk about it more then as well. But right now, I'm going to definitely spoil through season 4. So you have been warned. So because so much of this story is focused on characters and character relationships, I think that that's one of the greatest elements of the story. And one thing that I really like about these characters is that they are really simple, yet all of them leave a deep impact on the story, no matter how long they are in the story. So Natsume obviously is the main character, Takashi Natsume. There is a slow unraveling of his character that I think is absolutely beautiful. You quickly learn that he was passed around from foster family to foster family. Nearly every single one of them treated him poorly because of the way he acted. Kids at school made fun of him for lying to scare people, and most of his foster families were unwilling to look past his odd behavior and acknowledge the beautiful things about him. He was labeled as a problem child at a very young age, and it took him a really long time to shake off this label. Natsume has always struggled with the way others perceive him. He is so used to bothering others that he does his best to be accommodating to a fault. He never voices what he actually wants or needs, and even though he has always maintained his kindness, he has lived his life disliking the people around him for treating him terribly. And he also hates yokai because his ability to see them has labeled him as weird and other in the eyes of like the other kids in his family. That is, until he is adopted by the Fujiwaras, and the Fujiwaras are the first family that have taken in Natsume without looking at him differently for his strange behavior. This is also the first town where Natsume has lived where he doesn't really scare people away, and by growing closer to the Fujiwaras as well as the people and the yokai in this town, Natsume starts to learn what it's like to have people in his life who love him, and he also learns how to accept love And once he does this, he slowly begins to heal. Natsume's healing is very slow, which I think makes his pain feel so much more real. Through every episode, you see him encounter yokai who either teach Natsume something about himself and help him develop a stronger relationship with a friend or with other yokai, or they help him realize again and again that the Fujiwaras are not like his other foster families. They love him unconditionally, and I think the format of the show really lends itself to developing Natsume beautifully, and he's an excellent main character. I feel so many things for Natsume. But that brings me into the Fujiwaras, and Toko and Shigeru Fujiwara are beautiful people. They are actually really understated characters, in my opinion. The way that they treat Natsume makes my teacher heart so happy. They meet him where he is. They originally don't ask anything of him. They give him a quiet and welcoming place where he slowly learns to open up, and they don't make him talk about anything before he is ready. And they never look at him differently for some of his odd behavior. That being said, they also scold him when it's warranted. And one of my favorite scenes in the whole show takes place after Natsume runs away after some yokai in an attempt to keep it away from their house, and he gives Toko a completely unreasonable explanation as to where he's going. And then when he gets home, she lays into him, rightfully so, and he deserves this, but Natsume finds himself smiling because someone is finally invested enough in him to care when he comes home and cares that he's safe. And I just love that scene so much. They have been the first family that actually invited Natsume to come live with them, and that entire episode where you see Natsume living with his previous foster family that is kind enough to him, but clearly not invested enough in him to show him any real affection. Natsume is generally aware that he is a burden to them. At the same time, you see two people, Toko and Shigeru, asking to raise him. Natsume wants to go with them, but ends up having to seal a yokai before he goes and save his current foster family, and he's injured and ends up in the hospital. The other family is complaining about the trouble that he has caused them, and right after, when you see Toko and Shigeru asking him to come and stay with them, like, it's so beautiful, just that juxtaposition between the two ways he's being treated. And they immediately show him genuine love and affection, and when Natsume breaks down in tears and accepts their offer, it's one of the most beautiful moments in the whole show. I love it. Next is Master Kitty Cat. Master Kitty Cat functions mostly as comedic relief, and it's brilliant the way he functions as comedic relief. I think he's so funny. I don't know what it is about him, but he just makes me laugh every time. I watch the dub. I think that the English dub voice for Master Kitty Cat is hilarious. I love how he's always screaming. I love how he's constantly shown to be an alcoholic. I love how his head is not proportionate to the rest of his body, and it's regularly commented upon by other characters. I just think he's hilarious. That being said, he has so many touching moments with Natsume. He constantly tells Natsume that he doesn't care about him and that he's only guarding him so that he can eventually take the Book of Friends, but even so, he shows genuine care for Natsume, and vice versa, Natsume cares about him. And he's so much more perceptive than he really lets on, and you see him gently nudging Natsume in certain directions that will help him, because he understands him at the end of the day. And he also shows a clear care for Reiko, and for Natsume, having someone around who knew his grandmother is also just really, really sweet, because he knows so few of his family. He knows so few people in his family. Mr. Natori is a famous actor who also happens to be an exorcist. He and Natsume cross paths and often spend episodes working together, and he and Natsume clash a little bit. Natsume wants to accept yokai and learn to live with them, while Natori wants to immediately exorcise them. That being said, they learn to lean on each other and respect each other despite their differences and opinion. Mr. Natori really cares about Natsume. He takes it upon himself to care for Natsume in his own way and give him someone to talk to, because he understands what it's like to walk through the world with the ability to see yokai. And that relationship is, again, just really caring and tender, and I love it. Tanama is probably Natsume's closest friend. He is sensitive to the spirit world, even though he can't see yokai like Natsume can. He is one of the first people Natsume tells about his ability, and their friendship is really beautiful because of this. Natsume isn't used to opening up to others about his problems, so having Tanama, a friend who doesn't need to lie to, is strange at first. It is quickly shown that Tanama is a true friend and genuinely interested in the lives of the people around him, and through his friendship with Tanama, Natsume slowly begins to realize that he can trust others and even lean on them in times of trouble, and Tanama is honestly just a really admirable person in general, but definitely a friend that Natsume needs. Taki, like Tanama, cannot see yokai, however, she is sensitive in some ways to the spirit world around her. Her grandfather was fascinated by the paranormal and taught her to draw spell circles where yokai would be visible if they stood inside of it. We meet Taki after Natsume helps her take out a bad yokai that placed a sort of curse on her, and from then on, she and Natsume have been close friends, and she plays the same role as Tanama in a lot of ways, as she's aware of Natsume's secret as well. I love how kind Taki is. She seems closed off at the beginning of the story because of the curse that was placed on her. But as soon as she's no longer beholden to it, she becomes much more bubbly and happy. I love how she is always willing to help Natsume whenever he's gotten himself into a difficult situation, and Natsume gets himself into a lot of those. And she and Tanama are always quietly looking out for him, even though he usually can't bring himself to ask them for help. That's an understated element to both of their characters that I really, really love. Lastly, I wanted to talk about Reiko. Where I am in the story, a lot of things about her are still a mystery. That being said, she has a reputation amongst the yokai where she sounds like this larger than life figure who challenged yokai to duels and took their names, but whenever Natsume sees into the yokai's past, the memories they have with Reiko are always tender and sweet. We see her playing ordinary games with the yokai she meets, and while she's making with them fleeting but beautiful memories. We see through the yokai's memories that she left a lasting impact on so many of them in such a little time. Of course, there are plenty of yokai who try to chase after Natsume and angrily demand that he give them their name back. But there are also many yokai who see Natsume thinking that they found Reiko again because they look so similar, and they're deeply saddened when they realize that they're never going to see Reiko again. We can assume that Reiko's backstory is similar to Natsume's in a lot of ways. Whenever Natsume's relatives talk about Reiko to him, they only talk about how weird she was or how she made them uncomfortable, but the Book of Friends has given Natsume the opportunity to see a different side of his grandmother, and that has helped him feel close to her, even though he never got a chance to meet her, and I think that's profoundly beautiful. So the characters are not the only thing that the show nails. I think the characters stand out to me in the show, but there are so many other things that it does really well. It has beautiful depictions of friendship and found family. It tackles feelings of loneliness and explores how we react to people who look or act differently, and demonstrates that even though there are so many people who will want nothing to do with people who are different, there are also kind people who do not limit their kindness and will accept anyone. My mom recently told me about this podcast she was listening to where she heard that fitting in is not necessarily the same as being accepted, and I feel like the show embodies this. Like, Natsume doesn't have to try and fit in this town because he has just been accepted, and I love that. The show is also very whimsical, and as I mentioned before, but I feel like everything that happens feels so ordinary. And I mean, take that with a grain of salt, because this is a story about a boy who can see and talk to yokai. What I mean is that I feel like I am living day to day in Natsume's life, and that episodic format of the show lends itself really well to that. And I like a lot of plotless books. And I think part of that is because I don't necessarily care about like big sweeping gestures in books or in life. And I care so much more about the day-to-day. And I love that Natsume's Book of Friends feels like it's just about the day-to-day. And I love it. That leads me to my last point, and that is that there are so many individual episodes that have had me in tears. A lot of the episodes are self-contained stories, but each episode kind of drips and hints at emotions so that the show still reaches like these emotional climaxes that hit really, really hard. And so I would say that it's like an episodic story with like emotional through line. And I love that format of storytelling, and I think I'm going to talk about episodes that I love, and I'm going to hopefully show that it does this really, really well. So there is an episode where Natsume meets an old woman who at one point knew a boy who was very sick. She made a deal with a mermaid yokai who gave her some of her blood so that the boy would heal, and after the boy got better, she learned that the mermaid blood is supposed to make you immortal and never age. She spent so much of her life worried that she had caused him trouble when she had acted so selfishly with no regard for the consequences. But when she meets Natsume, he helps her track down the family, and then she learns that the mermaid has been tricking her, and she hadn't given the man immortality at all. But she does get to connect with the boy's grandson and learn more about his life. And I cannot pinpoint exactly what it was about this episode that moved me so much, but I thought the writing was excellent, and I thought that it culminated emotionally in a really satisfying way. And it's really stuck with me since I watched it. There is another episode where Natsume and Master Kitty Cat, they raise a baby yokai from birth, and watching the two of them care for this thing from a young age, they gradually give him the confidence to go out and live on its own is just really simple and touching, and it was actually also really funny to watch Master Kitty Cat try and be a parent. There is a fox yokai who is a recurring character in the story. He has a few episodes that are really sweet. Natsume is gentle with this yokai when the other yokai are not kind to him. And he just lost his mom, and the connection that he and Natsume develop is, again, just very gentle and sweet. There is an episode where the other yokai tell him that he will eventually need to let Natsume go because humans and yokai have different lifespans, and this will only end in heartbreak for the fox. The fox ends up coming to the conclusion that he will keep fostering his relationship with Natsume because he would rather have memories with him than not have known him at all. This is really well written, an emotional moment in the show. There is a beautiful episode with a spirit who spent a portion of his life trying to comfort a woman who she used to meet with her boyfriend at a shrine every day. She finds out that her boyfriend, whom she loved very much, got forced into an arranged marriage and could no longer be with her. He couldn't bear to see her cry, so he impersonated her boyfriend until he eventually told her he was lying and what actually happened, and just kind of ran away, not knowing what the woman thought of him. He spent many years thinking that this woman hated him, and he didn't blame her for that, but he felt really sorry that he hurt her in that way. And he goes back to this shrine years later to find a letter that he can't open, and he takes the letter to Natsume, who helps him open it and read the note that just says, "Thank you for telling me." And it's a really sweet moment of healing for that yokai, and I loved this episode. Taki's grandfather, similar to Reiko, is disliked by the rest of her family because he was odd. Taki loved her grandfather so much and lived a lot of her life thinking that she was the only one who truly cared for him. However, there is an episode where Natsume speaks to some spirits living in her house and learns that there were so many yokai who cared for him, and were at his bedside when he died, even though he and Taki couldn't see them. And Natsume tells her this, and she realizes that she wasn't the only one who actually loved her grandfather. And I just think that this is a beautiful gift that Natsume gave her. There are so many moments like this in this show, and it's beautiful. I love it. My very favorite episodes are at the end of season 4 and are the entire reason that I decided to make this video. In this little mini arc, Natsume hears from his relatives that his childhood home where his father raised him for a few years before he died is being sold. Natsume spends the entire episode convincing himself and others that he is okay with this. He doesn't have many memories of the place, besides he couldn't think about it before when he was living with these other foster families because it was just too painful to remember any kind of good memories, and he was just too sad to realize that he lost his parents. Now he is in a loving home and he can handle letting the house go, as he thinks, and then you can see everyone around Natsume kind of trying to check on him, but he keeps putting on a brave face. He ends up losing a photo of his parents, and then when he is out with his friends, he tries to insist he is fine, but Tanama tells him he doesn't need to pretend, and his friends end up helping him look for the photo. After he finds it, this spurs him to tell the Fujiwaras that he would like to go and see his house. When Natsume finally gets to see his house, it's a beautifully bittersweet moment. And as soon as he opened the door and just said, "I'm home, Dad," I ended up weeping. When Natsume and Master Kitty Cat walk through the door, it's not like they find anything special. It's again so ordinary, but that moment where Natsume remembers his father telling him how his mother planted flowers for him before he died was so bittersweet. In that moment, just making Natsume finally cry just so feels so true to life to me. I think these couple of episodes perfectly capture the complicated emotions that come with grief, and I love how it captures it so quietly, and again, so much of this feels so ordinary to me, and I think that like that ordinary depiction of like real and complicated emotions is what this show does so well. So needless to say, I love this show so much. I again have only watched through season 4, but I mean, if I'm as moved by the next 3 seasons as the first 4 seasons, I might talk about it again. Please tell me if you have seen the show and what you thought about it. I would love to hear about that in the comments. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you have watched this far, yeah, thank you. Goodbye.